I'm doing well. Thank you so
Good.
much. Hi, my friend. So let me just get started here then.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes,
All right, here we go. All right, Alan. You pronounce your name Allan Tsang, correct?
that's correct.
Allan Tsang, thank you for coming to the show. He's an entrepreneur and owner of 88 Owls. He's a negotiating coach with over a decade of experience in training hundreds of professionals to negotiate more effectively. His real-world experience and track record of success can be adapted to virtually any industry or profession, with specializations in the engineering, technology, manufacturing, biomedical, and aerospace sectors. And I would say that I would add on there too that you could also help out with this situation with people looking for jobs later on. But we'll talk about that later on. He was born in
Yes.
he was born in Hong Kong, raised in Africa, and educated in the United States. Alan's early career took him to Boston, New York, and Atlanta before finally settling into Virginia, where he's currently living right now. And he's a business coach over there. He is fluent in English and Cantonese. His global experiences have shaped his perspectives and enhanced his ability to bridge cultural gaps, facilitating better communications and lasting agreements. He has a no-nonsense coaching style. And my friend, thank you for coming on board. He has a master's degree in peace studies and conflict resolution from George Mason University. He's also been to the Wharton School for Operations Management and Supervision, Stanford University for Human Computer Interaction. And how the heck do I know all this? Is because this is all. This
You
is
have
all.
access to my LinkedIn
There you
profile.
go. He's on LinkedIn. If you're curious to see more about him, so Alan, thank you so much for making time to be on this show today. How
Thank
are
you,
you?
Luis.
Yeah, for
Very
sure.
good. Well, those are just courses in my pastime that I just take online, so don't take them too seriously. But I'm always a student of negotiation, so what I do is I get as much books as I can on negotiation and study from people who have been doing it in the field.
Hmm.
People like Gary Nessner, he's kind of like a friend, and he's a mentor to me. But I meet with him regularly just to get advice, and so I always feel like there's someone who is much better than I am that I can learn from. So
You
just a
know,
student of negotiation.
same here. I think we all are students of negotiation. I was thinking about you before I got on the call today. So last summer we went to Chicago on a family trip with the Hilton Grand Hotel vacation package. And we had a great time. I think it was like a 2 or 3 days trip. Us literally, we're leaving the hotel, and somebody says, "Hey, I don't know how the heck they knew who we were, but they recognized that we were part of this vacation package." And I was a sucker, man. I was a sucker. Signed right back up. And now because of this pandemic, this is challenging for us, right? So my wife has sickle cell, which is a very
Uh,
serious, her immune system is compromised. My daughter has a hypertension, another immune, her immune system is also
wow.
compromised. So she's asking me, say, "Hey, have you contacted?" I'm like, "No, I haven't. I finally got my rear off, and I called. I said, "Hey," and I spoke to them about the situation. Obviously, I said, "Hey, I'm not the only one going through this pandemic." And I realized at that moment, I started a negotiation. I started to negotiate with them because I said, "Hey, me and my family have already invested half of the price for this stuff." And I already knew the terms and policies and conditions that they were just going to say, "No, let's just move you forward to next year." And I said, "What are the options?" And I realized at one moment that that person was not the decision maker. I said, "Hey, can I talk to your supervisor or can I talk to somebody else?" They're like, "Oh, we have to put you in the queue. There's no guarantee that they're going to call you back." I was like, "All right, I'm just going to do what I do best, which is always communicate what I think should be just have a communication, a conversation
Right.
about what's fair, you know." Um, I think your skill sets, man, for this conversation today are going to be very valuable just to the listeners, not just in business, but just anybody that has to negotiate. So
You have said something that is like so key right now. It's like all my clients, whether they're in Hong Kong or Vegas or New York or DC, you know what they're all doing right now?
what's that?
Renegotiating everything. Factories, suppliers, vendors, customers, uh, regional distribution channels. Um, you negotiate with your employees, with your bosses, with your clients. People that I'm doing workshop for, everyone is renegotiating everything. So everything that I used to do, which is like in person traditional workshop, we have to renegotiate and offer virtual workshops by Zoom. How's that
Mm.
going to look like? What's that going to involve? Right. So it's the
So
key word nowadays is just renegotiation.
so you're busy, I assume.
It's actually it's weird, right? So as soon as at least almost like 2.5 weeks ago, almost half of my work just evaporated. No joke. It just went zip, gone. Then last week, things start coming back. So workshops, the training that was supposed to be in person has gone virtual. So
Mm.
some of the workshop that I did, I changed it to virtual. So far, out of there's only less than 4% of the people that signed on for the a traditional workshop said I want my refund. So that was amazing. So we're moving forward with that. And my clients in Hong Kong have actually doubled down, Luis. They've actually said we are now finding ourselves in more negotiation than ever. In fact, last night, one of my clients says, we have negotiated with our supplier. We have to go back and renegotiate that to renegotiate what we negotiated a couple weeks ago.
So now you're in the third phase of negotiations.
Absolutely. It's a new world. It's a completely new world.
So is there were you, in your toolkit, did you have a process in place for to renegotiate what you already negotiated? Or
Yes, it's just
is it still the same flow of process?
the process stays the same. That's why that's the beauty of a system. So whether my clients that are procurement or sales can use the same process. Whether you're negotiating with a partner, forming a strategic partnership, negotiating a term, a price, getting a job, getting a promotion, the process is the same. That's the beauty of a system. But tactically, things are different now. So you have to go into more of a business mindset. You have to put on the business cap.
Hmm.
Um, so the beauty of what I do is I don't only just do negotiation. I used to do a lot of strategic business planning. So having access to how business works, working with over 500 companies, I am almost like a category of different things that work and don't work, and best practice and bad practices, and best practice that will fail and bad practices that would work in different situations. So I would take an idea from an industry with like a disconnected company and just say, have you guys tried this? And they're going to go, great, great idea, right?
So it's kind of like just looking at case studies for different industries and just seeing what works and what doesn't work in a new industry to see if that would work.
Apps. Quick example. So I'm talking to this company in Hong Kong yesterday, and they people in Hong Kong's behavior is very different from the West. They seldom stay at home, right? So they do a lot of the shopping outdoors. They go out of the house and they come home and they just go to bed. They
These
even
are
eat outside.
in Hong Kong.
Yes, in Hong
Okay.
Kong.
Okay.
In America, people don't really like to travel that much. Like for me to go to a mall, I live in the middle of nowhere. I live in the sticks. So for me to go to the store, the mall, sometimes is like 30 minutes. I used to be worse. It used to be like an hour for me to get to the mall. So I use a service that is like everything is delivered. Like, have you guys used something called Trunk Club or Stitch Fix or something like that?
Oh, but no. What is Trunk Club?
Trunk Club and Stitch Fix. Those are like I know I'm kind of schlubbing it today, and the Dan Oblinger's term is like I'm dressed like a hobo, right? But
Hey
um,
man, hold up. You're not dressed like a hobo. Let's put it into perspective. Look at me. I'm in a t-shirt. Before
the
way
main
before
thing is comfort.
way before the pandemic, you could have found me in a polo shirt or a suit. And now
That's
that I
right.
started this podcast, this is my uniform,
Right.
a black t-shirt. So this is your
So
uniform for today.
Stitch Fix and
Yeah.
Fix and the Trunk Club, they're essentially these like mail order clothing. So you have a
Ah,
fashion designer that knows your style. You tell them what you like, you don't like, what worked and what didn't work. They send you these like on a weekly or monthly package with shoes and belt and pants and shirt. And so if I look good, it's because of them. And when I look horrible, it's not me either, right? So I'm just telling my workshop attendees when I dress well, I have something to do with it because I gave the feedback. Now, if
all right.
I
So,
look horrible, that's because someone picked those clothing for me.
all right. So
So
let's
the
go
beauty
through.
of it is,
Let's go through your attire right now. Trunk Club and Stitch Fix. They dressed you up in what today? What do you
yes,
have on?
they
What do you
dress me
have
up
on?
in like they have different styles. Like so, you
Okay.
can in the summer you have summer work clothes, or you can pick sports outfit, or you can pick a dress outfit. So they can pick like maybe a sport jacket. So when it comes to suit, I go get fitted up in a tailor, right? But if it's sports jacket and jeans and a pair of nice leather shoes, a belt or something like that, I'll let them pick it for me. They color coordinate it for me because you know why? I'm color blind, number one.
Oh, okay.
Number two, I don't want to go out. I don't want to drive out there and just go through all these clothes. They ship it to me. I keep what I want. I ship it back to them and they only charge me what I keep. So now there's this like a $4 billion company in Asia. People are not walking out, leaving their house, right? They don't want to shop. They don't want to shop around because in the mall in Hong Kong it's going to be tight. So what do? You take the clothing to them. So it's an idea that is popular in the U.S. here, and I was just promoting it back there in Asia,
Smart.
right? So
Smart.
when you've worked with so many companies, you're like, okay, I know it worked here. You guys want to try this here?
So let me ask you: are either one of those two companies your current client right now?
Which
It,
one?
either Trunk Club or
Oh
Stitch Fix.
no, no.
Okay. Okay.
I'm there the customer.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Uh, so what kind of clients? So just to let our audience know, you have a lot of clients right now in Hong Kong, and your working hours are very different than hours in the United States, which start at 9 o'clock in the morning over here, probably ends at, depending on if you're working for corporate America, at 4 or 3:30. If you're an entrepreneur, it's 24 hours, right? uh,
Yes,
but if,
yes.
but for yourself, what does your typical work schedule look like if you have clients overseas?
Before this whole thing hit, right? So I would wake up around like 5:30, and so my day starts around 8, and then I end around 4 or 5, and then I have dinner. I spend time with my kids, and then it typically starts again at 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock or one
PM.
o'clock morning. I sleep only 4 hours.
8 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's not every night. So some nights will be 9 to 12, some will be 8 to 1, or 10 to 2. And I just need about 4 hours of sleep. And it's not that I don't want to sleep. It's just that I can't sleep more than like 3 or 4 hours. I just cannot get myself to sleep.
Was that the same before the pandemic?
Oh yeah, it's always been like that.
Man,
So
I did the same thing last night. I just couldn't sleep. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Went to sleep at 12.
hey, give me a call. We just talk. We can do this podcast at 4 in the morning or whatever.
So what are you doing during that time? You're just kind of like getting ready to have a conversation. Who are your clients over there in Hong Kong, though? If you could share that information.
So they are like global retail companies or manufacturer of toys for OEM, for let's say Mattel or Hasbro or something like that. The OEM toy manufacturers for gaming, like high tech toys, things like that. Um,
Okay.
Maybe some of them are equipment manufacturers or distributors.
And I'm assuming that the supply chain right now is just you're probably part of that conversation right now with the supply chain, I assume.
The conversation right now is almost 100% around supply chain and less about sales. It's less
Less about
about
sales,
sales.
of course, because now that you're trying to get the products from point A to point B, and Hong Kong is one of the biggest ports over there in the world.
Oh, it's not sales, but you're still having conversation with the customer. So it looks like this. So a customer places an order, and the customer now says, I cannot sell your product, so I need to cut my PO by half, or I just want to cut the PO. So now you're negotiating with them. Our stuff is at the port. It needs to clear customs. Customers like, I don't care. You just send it back. if I take this, I'm going to be out of business. So I'm not going to take it. You do what you need to do. So my client has to go, how do you negotiate with companies like that? And then on the same time, on the other side, you're talking to your suppliers and your vendors. Okay, we have a customer that doesn't want to take the whole PO. Can you take it back? And then the manufacturer is like, too bad, we already made it. We shipped it for you. It's your customer. So depending on where you are in the supply chain, you may have conversations with just the customer if you're at a factory,
Hmm.
or if you're a retailer, if you're a wholesaler, you have conversations with the retailer and your supplier.
So you can find yourself either just coaching your client, or do you also have a conversation with their uh, uh, customer as well?
So I am not a agent for hire unless we have done business for a long time. Does that make sense? Like I
It
coach them
does.
on how to have that conversation, but it's risky when they put me on early. So I don't take that project, even though I can. I don't want to. It's actually safer for them to learn how to negotiate than to have someone who doesn't know all the nuances of the industry to bring them in.
So, what is negotiation? This is it might seem like a dumb question. I think we're all negotiators all around the world. So I'm from Dominican Republic, and if you've traveled to the Caribbean, you know that everybody hustles over there for anything. And I think the same goes over here in the United States or in China, right? Where I went there in 2018, and to buy anything in one of the markets, you really had to make sure that you're not overpaying for anything, and that's just in the market, right?
Right.
Uh, so why are you laughing? Why are you
I'm
laughing?
laughing because as you're telling me this, I'm picturing when I was negotiating I needed to buy luggage at the market,
Okay.
where it's like the open market,
Yeah, yeah.
and I need a luggage to bring stuff back, and yeah, you're just haggling with the lady, and she was at first she was telling me, oh, this is a branded suitcase, and that's why I have to charge you so much. So it's because like my wife is Caucasian, so as soon as you walk up there, they think, guess what,
Boom,
foreigner, right?
boom, boom.
So you
Yep.
get the foreigner premium, which is like 3 or 4 times what the price is.
Yeah.
So now I have to use some like local dialect, and I have to cuss a little bit. I don't like to cuss, but as soon as you use a few Cantonese cuss word, they immediately go, "Oops, okay, local." Now you can now this is the cultural thing that you get it down lower, and then very soon I'm picking this luggage apart. I'm like, oh, look at the zipper. It's not quite flowing like it should. If it's
Quality control.
I know it's not branded, right?
Yeah.
But I said, like, if it's branded, it shouldn't be like this. It should be thicker. It should be, and this is what she said. What do you expect? This is not the brand that you think it is. I'm like, I just did you just say it was branded stuff?
Cha-ching.
She's like, basically, she's like, expect some flaws in it. What do you think this is? This is not the branded stuff.
So you got to teach me some Cantonese curse words now. What is
Oh,
it?
I'll get you covered.
Give me one. Give me one before we move on.
This is not a cuss word, but if you say this and you say with a different tone, it
Okay.
means so many different things. You can get away with it in many situations. It's called 有冇搞錯?
Yao mo gao shou.
Oh yeah, that's great. 有冇搞錯? So 有冇搞錯 means are you mistaken, right?
Are you mistaken? Okay.
So if you're trying to buy something and the other person goes, it's $100, you just say, what,有冇搞錯? He's like, are you mistaken? Now you say that, they're gonna lower the price.
All right. So
If
do you
someone
speak?
gives you a gift, the
Yep.
funny thing is someone gives you a gift and you feel like, oh, no thanks. Like,有冇搞錯啊? Like it's like almost with a surprise tone. It means like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. You're like,有冇搞錯啊? You don't have to do this.
So
So it's
I'm trying to write that down, but I'll figure it out later. So yao. Okay. So yao mo gao
有
shou.
有冇
Yao
搞錯?
yao mo gao shou.
有冇搞錯?
Yao mo gao shou.
錯 CHOR 有冇搞錯?
Cho. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you speak Spanish?
No.
All right. So the similar situation, right? Where if you're trying to buy that same luggage and they overprice it, you could say, "Pero tú estás loco." pero tú estás loco.
Pero tú está
Estás,
loco.
yeah.
Pero
Now
tú está loco.
you say that with a high pitch. It's kind of like the same. Are you mistaken? Kind of like the same
Pero tú
llamo
está
caucho.
loco.
Yeah. Now, if as an example, you and I, when we first had a conversation, if you remember, you saw a picture of me cooking on LinkedIn, and you were like, "Oh, I want that," and I was like, "Hey, I'm all in. We come over. I could cook for you, or we could go out for dinner." And let's just assume that in that same dinner, I were to come over with a present for you, like a nice, expensive bottle of wine. At that point, you could say, "Tú estás loco?" Like
Are you
no, yeah,
crazy?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
it has that same meaning. So you
yeah.
can use it as a surprise. You can use it as a grateful. Like it's almost like that surprise can be good surprise or bad surprise, right? But it's a surprise. Like, oh my
Correct,
goodness,
correct.
有冇搞錯? What, $200?
Exactly, exactly. Now, negotiation in Hong Kong and China, from my understanding, negotiations are very different, right? From a business perspective, right? In the United States, we could sit on the table, and depending on where you sit on the table, you could sit anywhere, but you could still be the decision maker or not, and everybody may be talking. But in China, it's a little bit different, right? It's just only one person may be speaking at one time. Is that
Not necessarily. It depends on how formal the organization is.
okay?
But if you're going to the table, like there's the one that is facing the door, right, is usually the most important seat, and they give it to the most important person in the organization, and then people sit around that, right, sit around him.
So is that
So
the same in Hong Kong as well?
that's how it is. But like in Hong Kong, yeah,
Okay,
you don't want
okay.
you don't want the most important seat facing the door, the back facing the door.
Is there a rationale for that? A rhyme or reason?
You can say it almost like it's a form of respect. Like if
Okay.
you walk into a court, right? A courtroom, the judge or the king, right, is facing you, and you approach the king.
Got
The
it.
king is not back to you, right?
Got it. Got it. It makes sense. It makes
The most
sense.
important person is sitting right in the center, and everyone else is on the side.
So it seems that 88 owls. How'd you come up with that name?
It's been a long time since 2007. A friend of mine, also a partner, Mike Greening, and I were working on a project which was to connect businesses and
Mm-hmm.
consultants.
Mm-hmm.
And the brand, the name that we came up was 88 Owls, because as consultants, we are like the owl to the farmer, and business owners are like the farmer. There's a natural sowing of the seeds, watering the business, and letting the business grow and flourish. And there's going to be pests, there's going to be problems, there's going to be issues that they cannot have access to or they cannot see. So the owl, with its perspective and the ability to see at night, they can catch the pest. They don't cost the farmer anything. So a consultant or a coach, when they come and work with a business, it's not an expense. They're actually creating value. They are
Mm.
they work in synergy with the businesses. They have a special perspective. They can see where the farmer is not able to see, like their blind spots,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we removed some of the problems for the farmers, just like a consultant would be for businesses. So the owl is the animal, and the word 88, at that time, Mike and I were starting a new company. We came from another business, and so the number 8 in many cultures means a rebirth or a
Ah,
new start. And when you have 2 8, it means in Chinese, the word 8 sounds like wealth. So
how
you
do you
see
say that?
a lot of numbers in Hong Kong with 88, right? Or phone
So
number is 88.
so one thing I didn't tell you, man, is that this was going to be a Cantonese lesson. So how do you say eight?
But
Excuse me.
but
Bot.
but like BAHT, but
Bot. Did I
yeah,
say that
but
right? Bot.
yeah, but
Perfect.
yeah, but.
So rebirth, restart.
And it
Interesting.
also seems like if you turn it to the side, is infinity. In many cultures, the number 8 is an auspicious number. So in Chinese, they love the number 8. So when you have two, it means double happiness, double the wealth.
Ah, So now it makes sense because I was looking at that. I was like, why 88 owls?
88 owls.
And you're still working at camp, correct? CAMP?
Yep, I still coach clients for them.
And that's so camp, is that only domestically here or is that how does that work out with them?
It's international as well. We have coaches in Australia and Europe and Eastern Europe. I handle the North America and the Asia Pacific clients. Uh, Todd Camp took over from his dad, and Dave DeSantis in New York also
Mhm.
handles that. I was working with Jim from 2008 all the way to 2014. He was my mentor and my coach, and I learned so much from him. And when he passed away, um, that was the end of my journey with them for a while. And then I just like a year or so ago, just reconnected with Todd again, and I'm coaching for his clients.
Got it. Okay. And I see you're still also with Dominion Metallurgical. I think I pronounced
Yep.
that correct.
Dominion Metallurgical, the chief negotiation officer, so I handle a lot of the negotiations for them, whether it's the procurement or sales, or mostly in the sales. Act as a customer liaison, director of customer liaison. It's
So
a
how,
vague enough term. It's a vague enough title, right?
no, I mean, I think it's a very important one. It's not so how did you end up doing what you're doing right now? So what was your journey to get to be the negotiator for those two companies and also developing creating 88 hours, founding 88 hours?
Long story short, had a company, had it for 12 years, and then I was trying to sell it, and the business broker wanted to buy it over. Uh, and the business broker, fast forward, business broker wanted to buy it, take over it, and then brought me back in to be a partner. The mistake was accepting a 50-50 partnership. Decisions were very difficult to be made. And then we decided to part ways. And during that process, negotiation failed.
Hmm.
Up to that point, had no interest in negotiation. I felt like negotiation was just a haggling of the numbers and stuff. And I offer a good product. I don't need to negotiate. Mistake. This guy was a
Hmm.
good negotiator. I failed along the way, lost the company, lost everything. And then that's when like in 2007, the loss of that company had nothing to do with the recession whatsoever. It was a series of bad decisions on my part. And so I evaluated it and I realized where I failed was the lack of good negotiation skills. So just to let you guys know, you can learn how to negotiate and get really good at it. Not that I'm just a student, right?
There you go.
So since then, Jim said something that was really cool when I chat with him. I was like looking over the world for the best negotiation coach, the best. Shopping around, I was like, this is where I failed. I need to find the best. And Jim says, "Yeah, I heard your story. I hear your story. What I'll do is I'll show you how to negotiate so that never happens to you again." I said, "That's great.
So where exactly did you fail then, if I may ask?
That's a long story. That's
Hey
it."
man.
So let me finish what Jim said. Jim said,
Okay.
"I'm going to teach you so that you never have to experience this kind of failure again, and I'm going to teach you how to teach others so it doesn't happen to them as well." So that's how I became a negotiation coach.
Got it.
Right. So where did I fail? I failed because I wanted to build a win-win agreement along the way, willing to compromise, willing to take a step back, willing to give the guy, my partner, whatever he asked. And I realized the more I gave, the more he advanced. The more I wanted to please people, the worse things got for me. Right. The more you're willing to compromise, the more the other side takes. To the point where I was invited to go to a mediation, and it wasn't even a mediation, Louise. It was a fake. It was a fake. It was a fake mediation set up by my partner. I walked in, and they wanted to know what I was willing to take to settle, and that was their starting point.
So this is while the business was still quote unquote healthy, or that's kind of where you started seeing that something was wrong, or did you see that
This
after the
was
fact?
this was the end where we wanted to part ways at that point.
Oh, okay. So this is towards the end already, and
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
so that okay.
yeah.
So win-win, and obviously you wanted to give, give, give. but nothing, and you weren't expecting anything in back in return at all. It's just that's just in your nature to give, give, give.
And that's where, like, along my whole life has always been, I grew up in, if you're an Asian and you grew up in Africa during the 70s and 80s, right?
Hmm.
You're in a foreign country, they are hosting you, you're a guest, right? So what you do is you try to blend in, you try to work with the culture, you want to please people. And when I was 17, I came to the United States. Same thing, you go to college, so you're kind of quiet. You're trying to be friendly, and you try to make friends, and you try to be liked, right? Along the way, you're going to realize that the more you want to be liked, the more you're going to be taken advantage of. That's period. You can almost find any person who is very likable, who wants to be liked, and you can ask them where they have failed in negotiation, and they got tons of stories for you. Tons of stories where they've been ripped off, they've been conned, they've been taken advantage of. And at this point, what I do is I don't tell people to be a mean person. I show them how to negotiate and get what they want without giving up unnecessary concessions.
Hmm.
That's what I do.
Hmm.
Help them maximize their resources, keep more of what they want they have, get more of what they want without taking advantage of someone.
But obviously there's some planning that has to go before you actually go into a negotiation. Any negotiation, you don't
Oh,
want to go in there. You don't want to go in there blindly,
that's
right?
the worst. Like, sales is just one form of negotiation. I train a lot of salespeople, and oh my goodness, Luis, some of them they fall in love with the idea of showing up so that they can throw up.
Hmm.
They just want to show up and throw up on their customers. They don't prepare. They don't want to prepare. They feel like they don't have time to prepare. Everything seems very obvious, and usually that's when they fail, or that's where they have to give compromise. And it cost my clients a lot of money when the sales team just refused to negotiate. Because I actually met a sales manager,
Hmm.
and the sales manager says, "Alan, I don't even know why my boss is hiring you, because we don't negotiate." I said, "You don't negotiate?" They said, "No, we don't." These are like, we talk about millions and like tens of millions of business. We don't negotiate. And I said, "When do you actually negotiate? I know you say you don't negotiate, but so tell me more about that." He goes, "The only time we negotiate is when we put a price up there and the customers don't like it, and then we start negotiating." I say, "Okay, so this is what they do." So I kind of follow them and I watch them, and this is what they do, Luis. They go and they sit down with the client. They have the quotes in front of them. They give the client a quote, and the client looks at the quote. And literally, this is sometimes what they say. They look at it and they kind of throw it on the table. They go, they sit back and they go, "This is too high." Guess what? Guess what this guy's team does? The team immediately opens their portfolio. This thick portfolio, right? Unzip and everything. Boom, opens it up, and he's cranking numbers, running calculators, and he goes, "I can do better. I can do better." And the funny thing is, while he's doing that, I'm watching, right? I need to observe how things go. Their prospect has a look of disgust. They go like this. Basically, they're saying, "So you were ready to rip me off?"
Of course. This sounds so scary. Is this in the auto business?
No,
Okay.
no,
All
I
right.
can't tell you. I can't tell you what it
All right,
is.
that's fine. That's why I asked the question to see if it's in the auto business.
They have been trained by the auto industry. That's how the auto. That's this sales manager actually used to live in Detroit. It's funny you say that.
Well, I was in the auto industry for 10 years. I was in the headquarters side, though, not at the dealership level. But man, we were, I used to work for Mercedes-Benz USA, and also Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, the
Nice
manufacturer.
brand.
At the Man, beautiful cars, quality products, uh, amazing marketing, amazing team. But I used to work for the headquarters, so obviously dealing with the dealerships and getting the customer feedbacks, and also just hearing it from other people outside of the Mercedes-Benz circles. The one thing that people hated the most was haggling. Yeah, they hated going into the dealership. So one of my first jobs at Mercedes-Benz as an intern was essentially looking at the customer flow in the after sales compartment. So basically, let's just say that you bought a car now, a brand new or lease car, and you need to get service, right? So we looked at the flow of those customers that are at the service level, and looked at the flow to see what's the best pattern for the entry and by the time they actually enter and by the time they leave. So the entire process for the car and also the customer. How can we enhance it? How can we
Oh,
optimize it?
wow.
But a lot of those feedbacks were just like they hated the process because I'm just here to change my tires,
Right.
whatever. Now they're asking me to buy a car, fine. Or if I'm there to actually buy a car or lease a car or return a car, and like you said, you're looking at the prices. The MSRP is whatever, $30,000. Why am I leaving with a $35,000 ticket? you know. But then you have that one nice representative that's just like, oh, we can make a deal. We can make a deal. So what's the process there, right? So
So if you have money, you won't negotiate, and then as soon as you balk at it, they go down on price. But I gotta say this: went with a friend of mine to the Atlanta Mercedes dealership to get his car regular maintenance. Hey, we got to use that the snack room. Right? They had a snack room. They had good food. You sit around, and then because you have to wait for the maintenance, and they're washing it for you and vacuuming it. Then we get to now we're shopping for the car. It's great experience though. I mean, given compared to other dealers, so because you sounds like you're an experienced guy, you see all the good and bad. But if you put it together, I think Mercedes have it right. It's a really good experience.
now this was now recently that you did this.
This was maybe a couple years ago. Maybe it's different
Okay.
from when you used to do it. It's like I go in
Not
there and they have like a almost like a small restaurant bar, and you can have drinks and food. And I'm like, wow, this is nice. Now I feel like I need to buy a car because I ate some free food.
There you go. No, seriously, I think those are the results of that process that I just told you about. It was called Workshop Process 2010, and
Oh.
this was during 2007 to during 2007 and 2008 that we started analyzing what was good
Hmm.
from a dealership perspective, customers visiting a dealership, and what are the areas of improvement, both in the retail sale, lease sales, and also the after service, right? So we looked at pretty much as a SWOT analysis, I guess,
Right.
and then the fruits of that labor you got to experience right now.
Oh,
Something as
thank you
simple.
very much. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Now, did you buy a car?
No, I didn't. I
So we
saved my
failed.
money and went to Fogo de Chao in Atlanta.
So we failed. We had to go back again and. Oh
Yes, yes.
man. But that's scary though. The reason I ask that is because a lot of people are. I guess this is why Carvana was founded, right? Because a lot of people hate the haggling process. But even in Carvana, I guess you have to question as well how much is that price for that vehicle, right?
You know what's funny, Louise, is that from what we know in negotiation, you want a certain amount of haggling.
It's healthy.
Correct.
Haggling. Okay.
It's how we do the haggling. It's how we haggle. Let me give you a few examples. For I mean, based on the research or what I've read, the literature it was that if let's say you want to buy a car, and I say, okay, it's this car, the AMG, let's say it's $140,000. You buy it, right? And you say, I don't want to buy your car at $140,000. I only want to spend 125,000. Let's say I don't haggle. I go, okay, got it, 125. Let's sign here. Immediately you go, oh my gosh,
I could have probably gotten it for less.
exactly. The people that did not get a pushback, they felt like I got a bad deal, even though at the time what you asked, what you wanted was a great deal.
Mm.
But because you didn't fight for it, and I just said, okay, yeah, done.
My last 5 years that I worked in Mercedes, I was in the remarketing department. Well, actually, for the 10 years I was there, I was always doing some type of remarketing. Where in the headquarters when I first started, I was doing the internship. Then I went into the pre-owned sales, handling the remarketing aspect of it. And what remarketing is essentially you're kind of what you said before, restarting, right? That number eight, right? You're putting
Yeah.
once you lease a vehicle, that vehicle the lease ends, it goes back to the dealership. That dealership has to do something with that asset, right? Now you have that asset with 60,000 miles, 40,000 miles, whatever. They're not going to keep the car unless they need it. And a lot of times they don't need that car, so they reintroduce that vehicle back into the supply chain of vehicles in the auction business. So in the auction business, there's numerous amounts of cars, thousands of vehicles that we have to manage. So your example there of the AMG that costs 145,000, I'm already thinking in my mind, is it a brand new car or is it a used car? And if it is a used car at the auction side, when I used to sell cars there, I would essentially sometimes organize, not just me and my counterparts for throughout the entire states. We would organize sales every single day, right? It could be traditional auctions where you have myself, the representative, and people in front of me just bidding on 150 vehicles per se.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, so you have to make quick decisions. You have to make decisions in a matter of like 25 seconds, because by the time the car comes, you have the auctioneer introducing that product. That product is already out the door. Now the new product is there, so they're still bidding on that. So you have, I'll have hundreds of people either online bidding for the same vehicle, or I have 20 people on the floor bidding on that same vehicle. So you have to manage that flow of information where it's just like, all right, I know the bottom, the floor of that, what the bottom price that we could sell, liquidate that vehicle. Let's just say, for your example, I could liquidate that car for 105,000.
Mhm.
My job in that situation is to sell it to maximize, right? So what's the best, we could talk about BATNA and Zona and all this other terminology, but
Zopa, yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Also, there is a place for BATNA and Zopa, but when I coach my business clients, I don't even think of that. We don't feel it. We don't address that
we don't.
because it's almost like going to battle. I will never tell my clients what they're willing to take. I'll give you an example, right? So there's this client in Hong Kong, and I'm helping them prepare for a negotiation with a key customer.
Hmm.
So as I'm helping them prepare, this guy who's been doing it for like maybe a couple of decades says, "Okay, so we know that the next conversation is going to be a price conversation. We've already made the prototype. The next conversation is a price conversation on what production is going to be like." And I said, "So tell me how you prepare." He said, "I'm going to do research and find out where we can slice on the margin, where we can lower on the margin on every single step of the process. And so that when he pushed back, I would know where my BATNA is, where my lowest point is."
Hmm. Hmm.
I said, "Stop, stop, don't do that. I need you to start thinking about all the value you deliver.
Boom.
I don't want, it's like, I don't want you to go into a fight and think, oh, how many punches can I take to the face before I take a dive on the ground? No, I want you to think of how you're going to punch the other guy, right? So I want you to think about all the value, everything that you have remembered about what they want. Why did they come to you? Why did they pick you over other suppliers? Why did they work with you all these years? All the value you delivered, and why paying you more because you can develop better products for them in the future. Paint the future. Talk of the benefits that you deliver to them, not just benefits. Benefits that doesn't benefit them is not a benefit. Again, guys, listen to this. There are features and then there are benefits. I don't actually care about the benefits. I only care about the benefits that resolve a particular pain for this prospect,
For sure.
right? And that's all we're going to focus on. And I need you to do research on that. I don't want you to do a research on how much you can come down or sharpen your pencil. To them, it seemed like a completely different thought. But the thing is, theoretically, they know it. But as soon as they sat in the hot seat and they have to do like whether it's role playing, the first thing they do is, I can compromise.
That benefit aspect that you're talking about. Let's go back to the same example, that $105,000 AMG that I'm trying to sell at the auction when I have maybe 50 or 100 more vehicles to worry about. There could be two individuals, person A and person B. They're both bidding at each other. Now the bid stopped. As an example, this is just a hypothetical that the bid could stop at 104,000 as an example.
Okay,
I know that I need 105.
fine.
right? So that person would say, "Hey, I need it for this amount. Can you?" And I'm like, "No, sorry, sir. 105." What I would do in there, I would literally stop the auction. I would walk down, have a conversation face to face with in front of all the other bidders. That way, it's all transparent, and say, "Hey, this is the price that we need. I cannot go down to 104." And then they'll say, "Oh, I could get it from the other lane." Because at the same time, there could be 20, 25, or 30 other lanes selling, but there could be other my competitors selling the same type of products. I could
Hmm.
get it somewhere else for 102. I was like, or 100 or 99. I was like, listen, if you go over there, that's fine. That's in your prerogative. But if you stay with us, Mercedes, the brand, right, Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, you know what you're getting. You know that if you go to Apple and you buy a Apple product, you're not just buying an iPhone, you're actually buying the customer service that comes with that, So that price tag that they put on these products in Apple, it could seem pretty outstanding and pretty high, but at the same time, if you have an issue, Microsoft, luckily now they started putting some storefronts. But before then, it's just that you have to call out the 800 number and just stick it out with Microsoft or whoever.
Right.
Nothing, nothing wrong with Microsoft or Sony. It's just I'm an Apple dude. I love Apple because of that reason. I know what great customer service is, and that's kind of what we implemented in Mercedes Benz, where you're buying this product for 105. Oh, and by the way, if you're not happy with this purchase, you could always come back to us within 14 days. Anywhere else, any other seller that at the auction, good luck with that. You're gonna have a very long arbitration conversation with us. We're gonna talk about it, and at the end of the day, when they end up buying that car for 105, they take it back to the dealership. They're trying to sell it for 140,000.
Oh, nice. They are so smart. But you what you did is perfect, right? You immediately talk about what they're gonna get,
Yeah.
not what you're willing to lose. You actually talking about, hey, you know what? For the 105, you get this, right? You're gonna get this. And you said something that is key that a lot of people don't sell, but they think they're selling it, but they're not, right?
What's that?
Which is, they talk about, yeah, the three things that people care about is price, delivery, and quality. That's it.
Hmm.
I'm like,
Hmm.
no, there's fourth, customer service.
Yes.
Customer
Yes.
service. You know, so many times another company may deliver the same product with the same lead time, but when you are in the wholesale business or when you're a reseller, you are selling the same stuff everyone else does. Your key competitive edge at that point is the customer service.
Alan,
You're a dealer, right?
I have to share with that. Whenever this pandemic subsides and we're able to hop on a plane or whatever, I welcome you to come to Columbus, Ohio, where I live right now. There's a shout out to Cravings Cafe. They are not sponsoring this at all. I wish that somebody would sponsor the show, but Cravings Cafe.
Yeah.
Cravings Cafe is located downtown. It to me is by far one of the best breakfast locations in Columbus, Ohio. Why? When they don't have anywhere that you could park at, it's very uncomfortable. It's in the middle of the downtown financial sector. You can't find parking. And if you do go to park, you're competing with everybody else that's in the high rises downtown. You
Wow.
find the parking, you wait in line or not, but the people that is either a 2 or 3 person operation, and they treat you with respect as immediately as you walk in. The food is impeccable. Everything is made fresh in there.
I am
Uh,
there.
but the most important part is that they deliver the food to you. And the first time that I experienced this,
Wow.
the walls were brick. They didn't paint them at all. It's really rugged, which to me I
Yeah.
was like I'm a fan. But the price was expensive. Number one, I was like, I don't know about this, but let me just try it out. And the only reason why I went there is because somebody else invited me for a breakfast, a business breakfast.
Right.
When I saw the prices, I was like, this is really expensive. It's in the middle of downtown, very uncomfortable. When I tasted it, I was in heaven. I was in heaven,
Yeah.
man. I was just like, this is Siri over here is talking to me.
You had quality and then you had service there.
The service itself, I go there occasionally, and even times like now, I'm thinking about them because small businesses are hurting. No, seriously,
I'm missing my restaurants. I am missing my restaurants too.
aren't you? I mean, you're a world traveler. You love to travel. What do you go for as far as food?
Well, it depends on which country I am in, right? If I'm in Hong Kong, I like to eat the dim sum, and I like to eat some of the like family cooking. Actually, like family cooking food, like steamed fish with like ginger scallions and cilantro on it. I like steamed chicken with the sauce that they have for it, and I like it's like those ducks that like roast duck that they hang on those little stalls, and all they
Yep.
have is like ducks, and there's someone chopping into little pieces. It's some of the cheapest meal ever.
Uh-huh.
Love it. Yeah, love it.
So my experience with Hong Kong is probably 0.001% of what you have experienced in Hong Kong. Why don't you walk
We'll
me
go to
through?
Hong Kong together when this is all over. Well, like couple years ago, I was going to go to Hong Kong, and I just announced to on social media like I'm going to be in Hong Kong between this day or that day. And a friend of mine from the UK that I haven't seen in over 30 years, he's a Ugandan. He's like, I'm going to meet you in Hong Kong just for a few days. So we met in Hong Kong. It was great times. Like we grew up in Africa together. So yeah, I mean, when this is all over, I'm gonna go, Luis. I'm going to Hong Kong now. Let's
Let's
go.
do it. Let's do it. When I went to Hong Kong, it was part of my executive MBA program that I did at the Ohio State University, and we went to there.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was really nice. We went behind the scenes to visit some companies. I don't know if you've heard of these companies. Expeditors was one of them. The other one was Hong Kong Air Cargo Terminal, Hactl. The other one was we went to the terminals. We visited HIT. I don't know if you heard about that company either. Also another one, we went to Shenzhen. It's called
Right across
Shenzhen,
the border.
right across the border. Shenzhen JCN, New Energy Technology Company. And also we visited Liangshan Technical Zone. And then we also visited the American Embassy, the consulate in Hong
Good,
Kong.
because in case you get into trouble, guess what? You need to know where that is.
There was interestingly enough, when we got this itinerary to go there, there was a huge gap on both because we first went to Beijing, and then from Beijing we went to Hong Kong, and then from Hong Kong to Shenzhen, and then back to Hong Kong. And there was a large gap there, and in the itinerary, I was like, wait a second, why do we have this large gap? And I said to the director at the time, hey, I think I could help you guys out filling in this gap. The guy looked at me like, how in the world are you going to help filling in three pieces of gaps in this itinerary? Because what happened was that the supply, apparently some of the companies backed up because they had something to do.
Yeah.
So I said, number one, I know that Mercedes-Benz has a plant in Beijing. I could
Ah,
try to work that out for everybody. They're like, all right, let's see what you can do. So I was able to get everybody over there to go to the Beijing manufacturing plant for an hour.
nice.
Yeah, so everybody got to see the behind the scenes production of Mercedes Benz in Beijing, which is obviously the quality, the standards are the same no matter where you are, right? So that's one thing that we did, and the other thing that we ended up doing, which this one I thought I was swinging for the fences. I thought I was swinging for the fences, and I actually was able to get people into the cohort into the American Embassy in Beijing and also the consulate in Hong Kong, because I used to work in the American embassies in Moscow, Russia, and also the American Embassy in Sarajevo, Bosnia.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, so I did that for 3 years. I was in the Marine Corps, and I picked up the phone and I started, just negotiating. I guess just my style, just a smile. I think a smile goes a long way in
A
negotiations, right?
$1 million smile. Yes.
No, seriously, I think a
Yeah.
smile goes a long way. And when I got back to the director, I said, "Hey, I got you some good news." Mercedes says yes. The embassy in Beijing and the consulate in Hong Kong. They're like, "How the heck did you pull this off?" It's like
Luis
negotiation.
the salesman. Yes, he got it there. He got the deal done.
No, no, but seriously, I think Hong Kong is a beautiful, beautiful location, man. So the fact that you travel there a lot, it's amazing.
I go
Uh,
there maybe once a year or twice a year, see some of my family over there, and do some workshop for my clients. Yeah.
so the protests that are potentially still, are they still happening over there? You don't hear about
Uh,
them now
it's
anymore.
a sport. It's very sporadic right now.
because of
They're
the
still doing
virus.
it, and people just hate it because during this chaos, this is the last thing they want, right? To have more trouble in the city.
Hmm.
But I just want to say this before we go any further.
Yep.
Do you watch Formula One racing?
Uh, seldom. I'm
Seldom.
from seldom.
Pull
Yep.
your hair back a little bit, and then you have the Lewis Hamilton look, right? Yeah, pull that hair back on top. You have the Lewis Hamilton, the racer for Mercedes-Benz. Yes, AMG. Like they are so awesome. He's a badass. He's a
What
badass
is it?
racer.
What is their sponsor starts with a P?
Petronas.
Petronas. Yeah, Petronas. I am. Thank you for that. I'm nowhere near Hamilton, but that's awesome. Thank you for that, though. Um,
And you're not
so,
even paying. You're not even paying. You're not even paying client, and I'm already complimenting you like that.
hey,
We need
man,
to. Yeah, we need to talk.
this is what it's all about, right? Hopefully, this gets you some clients, right? If,
Yes, that'll be great. That'll be
so,
great. Yes.
so let me just put a plug over here. If you, ladies and gentlemen, if we're talking to Allan Tsang, if you need some negotiating coach or somebody to help you develop a negotiating strategy for your company, you can always contact him. If you don't know how to contact him, LinkedIn. LinkedIn
Yeah,
is
go to LinkedIn or go to my website is 88, the number 88, and then owls, OWLS.com. You see, guys, do you see what happened? As soon as you compliment someone's look, he's plugging me already. That's worth millions right there.
well, hopefully you do get some clients out of this, man. Uh, no, but seriously, Hong Kong is amazing, and I saw that on LinkedIn. If you don't mind me sharing, you shared a letter to the protesters
Yeah.
to Hong Kong. Do you mind if I read this out?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So on LinkedIn, you wrote down 8 months ago, or roughly around there. It said, "Dear Hong Kong protesters, escalating things to the point of provoking China into physical action and blowing things up, metaphorically speaking, would help no one. Not only would you not have your 50 years as a SAR, what does that mean, by the way?
Special administrative region.
All right.
Like Macau, where they can have like autonomous, like like an autonomous region. Yeah,
All right. Not only would you not have your 50 years as a SAR, the 2047 timeline will be accelerated, with China using this as justification. The minute you make the protest about the youth versus everyone else, you've made your fight infinitely more complex, more difficult, and vulnerable to groups, internal and foreign, interested in a protracted conflict splitting you up. Following this trajectory, things will not end well for Hong Kongers. This are better. This are better ways. But first, then you outline 9 different things. Number one, slow things down. Number two, de-escalate and calm everyone's emotions. Number three, show authorities you want to be heard and negotiate how best to protest. Number four, show authorities and those in Beijing the benefit of leaving Hong Kong as a SAR. This is super critical. Number five, show them the risk of turning Hong Kong into China too quickly, too drastically, if ever. Number six, develop a vision develop a vision so attractive to all Hong Kongers that they are willing to get behind, even though it may not be everything each group wants. Number seven, prevent troublemakers from stirring things up. Number nine, do not use police authority as proxy for China. And last but not least, number nine, do not wave the US flag. That letter, man, so you asked me how the listen, I started doing some research before the conversation and I saw that, and as I'm reading that, I was submerging myself in in this pandemic right now where it's not just a US the US is not only the only country going through this, right? You have individuals in South America, in Canada, which is obviously part of North America, Europe, Asia. It's a global issue, and I started to
right.
just kind of just put myself in this, and I said, I wonder if you were to write that to just the world today with everything that's going on, what would that look like? You don't have to, you don't have to uh, uh, read a letter like that right now, but I don't know. It kind of struck me very, number one, very interesting that you wrote that to the protesters. Then I started asking myself, has he had that experience with protesters in Hong Kong? And if so, can you elaborate,
Well, I have friends that are, let me step back a little bit. I have friends who knows people in the protester or have protested.
Okay.
I'm trying to distance myself. And then I have friends that are, they are like special advisors to the Hong Kong police. And so I talk to both sides, and ultimately, if you look at my letter, it is to de-escalate. It is
Yes.
also is what you did at Mercedes. Instead of using threats, how can I use vision? How can I paint the vision to the world, to the other Hong Kong people, and to Beijing that leaving us as is benefit to you,
Mhm.
right? Burning down Hong Kong benefits no one,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's just a different way. I'm not going to say one way is better than the other way. It's just a different way. It's
Mhm.
a different way to negotiate.
Mhm.
Can I put a gun next to your head and just say, Luis, I want your Mercedes right now. Would you give it to me? You would, because you have no choice, right? Or I can negotiate with you and give you something of value and do business so that in the future we can continue doing business. My philosophy has always been where I don't use threats, I don't use coercion, I don't use manipulation, I don't use deceit, right? I try to make sure that my students use good negotiation principles to build long-term agreements that doesn't fall apart easily.
Mm.
If I threaten you, if I lie to you, if I manipulate you, very soon, if you find out or if you find yourself under leverage or I force you to do something you don't want to do, the deal is going to fall apart very soon.
So transparency is one of the biggest things that I'm hearing there.
Absolutely. It's one of the tactics I call is like tactical vulnerability.
Okay.
I actually tell you my problem and what you can do to me. I have clients, for instance, that they have to negotiate it and get a better deal. And one of the things is like, look, if you don't want to work with us, we understand. If you no longer want to work with me, I get it. There's other people that can service this, they can do this, and I tell them exactly what they can have. In fact, you can if you want to leave us and go somewhere else, we will help you with the transition. And for instance, as a manufacturer, I would even say, I will even help you build up inventory so that when you go to my competitor, you have time to ramp up the business over there. I'm not going to put you in a bind. I will make the transition very comfortable and safe for you.
So at that point, do you the success rate of that potentially maybe like no, 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 we want that person because they had that tactical vulnerability, like you said.
It's over 90% success rate. That's
You know that.
conservatively. I'm conservatively saying, and this is the follow up is this. If you want to leave us, we get it. It seems like we have not been able to deliver what you want us to deliver, whether it's the price or and if you want to go somewhere, I get it. If I was in your shoes, I probably would do the same thing.
So
Then
you're actually being honest with the hope that they actually say no, no, come back.
correct.
So
Because
it's
everyone else is manipulating them. Everyone is trying to lie to them. They say, we'll give you the best stuff. We'll come over here, right? They say, look, we're not the lowest cost provider. Or if we screw it up, we're like, hey, it looks like we're incompetent over here for very, very few months. So like we have never delivered good products on you. We're failing constantly. And then I go, after they emotionally they have been de-escalated, then I'll just say, now they're gonna listen to me, Louis. And I'll say, what you don't know is I have researched the place, I have looked into our production, we have done everything we can, and there's this little problem. If we can fix this little problem, all this will go away. Guess what? They go, oh my gosh. The funny thing is, Louise, my clients may have been telling them for 6 months or 4 months the same thing I'm telling them, but they're missing one little formula. The formula is using tactical vulnerability and say, I know we screwed up. It seems like we're not listening to you. It seems like we are not incompetent. It seems like we don't care about you as a customer, and that's why we're not responsive.
hmm,
And then I use an emotional I tag an emotion, right? I tag the emotion along with it and go, you must be totally disgusted with us. And guess what they say? That's right. They point a finger at our face. That's exactly how we feel. That's exactly how we feel, Alan. Then I go, well, what you may not know Now I have them on my side. I said, well, what you may not know is we have been doing everything that we can, and this part or this product is very difficult to make. If you go elsewhere, because they know I'm telling them the truth at this point. But before that, there's no truth that they will listen to you. But now I'm telling the truth. Like if you go elsewhere, you're going to have this difficulty. We have worked out this difficulty. We know how to make it work. In fact, I'm going to ask you for something that is unreasonable. I want a blanket order from you guys. Not only do I want them not to go, I want a blanket order from them. I said, if I have a blanket order from you, then I can get it made. I can inventory it. I can inspect it. And so your lead time, instead of like 8 or 10 weeks, we can deliver in 1 week
Hmm.
at no extra cost to you. Guess what they say? Almost 90 plus, but yes, let's do that, right? Why is it good for my client? Now I have blanket order for the next year or the next 3 years.
Hmm. And plus, you probably built that trust.
Correct. Look, there's at this point there's no trust. I don't need to work on trust. It's funny. It's like if you're a salesperson, people always talk about trust, and I'm not saying trust is bad. I recently wrote an article.
Okay.
Trust is not bad, but if you're a good negotiator, I don't even need trust to do business. I don't. I do not. Most of the time, I walk into a negotiation with my client, the other side has a distrust of my client. Distrust. And when I walk out of that meeting, we haven't really delivered anything to prove them to trust us. Is how we say what we say that allows them to feel safe enough to take a risk with us again. That's it, to take a risk with us.
So it's not trust, but just the ability to have them feel safe, and
Yes,
that risk aspect of it as well. Because
absolutely.
let's face it, somebody's going to take a risk. Either they're giving you something or taking something. Somebody's taking a risk.
Absolutely.
So trust is developed throughout the process, throughout the journey.
The guy that bought that car from you for 105,000.
Okay, we're back to that example. Okay.
Yes, yes. I circle back. He's taking a risk that what you said that day when you walked down the stage, he's taking a risk with you that when he brings the car back, you are going to keep your word from how you said what you said. He's going to take that risk.
Hmm. You know, early on when I first so I was in Orlando, Mannheim, Orlando. And when I arrived there, this is after 6 or 7 years of working at headquarters, and now they gave me the keys per se, the keys to the kingdom, quote unquote, to
Nice.
to number one, to develop the auction business down in Orlando, and also operate it. And one of the my initial arbitration is just obviously a legal term, but in the remarketing world, it's utilized to say, hey, this individual, this customer, this dealer bought a particular asset and now they're returning it back, right? And when they return it back, now an arbitration is open. And in that arbitration, it's either Mannheim, which is the auction house, has to manage that arbitration, whether to keep the car, return the car, or work out a deal. One thing that we do in Mercedes-Benz, and I don't work for Mercedes-Benz, let me just say that right now, but I'm still speaking like I do for some reason. One thing that we
It's
do
in your
to,
blood. It's in your blood.
it's in my blood. One thing that we do or did in the Mercedes-Benz is that we essentially manage that arbitration process, because at the end of the day, is the brand recognition is at stake, meaning
Correct.
that we could have the auction manage that process and say Mannheim or Odessa, those are the two biggest auction houses. You manage that process. You tell them no, we're not going to buy it back, and they and stick it to the man.
Right.
One thing that I decided to do early on was like, no, I want to make sure that I looked at you in the eye and I sold you that car. If you have a problem with that, whatever it is, mechanical, paint, let's have a conversation. And one of the guys that we became great friends after this, by the way. He came in, doors open. You sold me this car, and I just sat there. I took it. I took it,
Wow.
and he just explained him. And I'm telling you, he explained it, but he was pretty much in my face, finger pointing. And afterwards, I said, "Hey, are you? Sit down, please. Let's have a conversation." He didn't want to sit down, and for some reason, I felt that he spoke Spanish. and I started to talk Spanish with him. And I said, "Hey, do you want some coffee?" And he's
有
like,
冇
"What?"
搞錯?
Llamo Gaucho. Yeah, there you go. I had some Llamo Gaucho. And I
Yeah.
offered him some coffee. And I realized that he's from Cuba. And I said, hey, Cuba and Dominican Republic is real close to each other. And we just, for some reason, I de escalated.
Love it.
I de
Love it.
escalated how he felt. And man, I ended up pretty much just buying back those cars. He bought 4 cars. He was very dissatisfied. But there was something key there that I said, hey, I'm going to buy these cars one time only. But yes, I could have done that more times. But
Yeah.
I wanted to set the stage that hey,
Yeah.
all
Expectation.
expectations. Although this is you see that I'm a new
Mhm.
guy over here, you haven't seen me. Let's set the expectation. You bought this car, fine. We're gonna buy these cars back for you. Here's your funds again. Now your floor plan, your money's back where you was.
Right.
He was a returning customer.
Nice.
He was a returning customer basically because of that reason. That number one, I was willing to listen to him, and he was
Mhm.
willing to listen to me,
Mhm.
and he wasn't haggling. He was just, in my opinion, he was just expressing himself.
Right.
Although somebody else could be like, "Hey, Luis, why are you accepting for that individual to talk to you like that?" Listen, I understand the our culture from a cultural perspective. I
Right.
understand how we are. You know, a Caribbean, we're hot. We speak with our hands. Look at me, I'm talking with my
Yeah.
hands. That
I
doesn't mean
get it.
that it doesn't mean that's a negative thing. We speak
Yeah.
sometimes with our increased pitch in our voice.
Yeah.
Does that mean that's wrong? No. He had something to say. I calmed him down, had some coffee, and now from that point, he ended up buying so many different cars, to the point that when I moved from Florida to Ohio,
Yeah.
he actually continued buying cars from me because he trusted me. It was that trust was not built immediately.
Yes. Over time, trust
Over
is there.
time. Yeah.
But in the first time when you have a conflict and they see you, there is no trust. We can still do business with no trust. Over time, the trust will be built and things get better. You see, you are focused on long-term benefit. Long term. You saw the you whatever you did, you have a long-term vision and you work towards that. That's great.
If there's one thing
That's
that I
why
know,
that's
that's
why
why.
you're a good salesperson and you're a good negotiator, right?
No,
Now
seriously,
let
it
me
was
ask you a question. Like people probably don't know what you do.
okay.
Why do you talk to your audience and maybe people who listen to me? What does Luis do? Is this during this time of the COVID-19?
Yeah.
Can they use your expertise?
So great question. Number one, right now I am focusing number one on my family, on my
Hmm.
family's health. That's by far one of the biggest things, because what I said when we first kicked off, my family has a weak immune system, my wife and my daughter. But besides that, I decided to launch this podcast to basically have a conversation with individuals like yourself that just want to have a conversation regarding their business or things that they're going through, or just share some key factors that maybe people might benefit, like this conversation and negotiation. I think a lot of people can benefit from it. Number three, for me as an entrepreneur, I think it was a very good outlet for me, because for the past 3 or 4 years, I basically I launched a company called Fidelis, and it was a risk management company that focused on safety solutions, safety and security solutions, and I
Safety
work.
solutions.
Yeah, yeah.
So what are your ideal clients?
Ideal clients. So I'll answer that question like you and I are inside a Delta plane going from point A to point B. You know that typical
Yes,
question.
we're in a Delta plane in a first class.
I was never in a first class, but all
Okay,
right.
business class. And I'm like, hey
I,
Luis,
what do
tell
you
me,
do?
yeah, yeah, what do you do?
So
Who are your ideal clients?
we just got updated. Honestly, ideal clients. This is the way that I typically answer that question. The ideal client, number one, has assets, meaning that you either have a building. Inside of that building, you have people, or you have inventory. And what I mean by that is that you're trying to protect the safety of those people. You're trying to provide security for that inventory, because at the end of the day, either the human capital
Yeah,
or the other asset, it's all, you could tie it back to money from a
right.
human resources perspective, or operations. Now
Yes,
you can have issues where theft, right?
right.
You- So we come up with those solutions that I was talking about. The safety and security solutions are creating policies around the safety and security side, and that's kind of what I did. My ideal clients were that, but the clients that I had were pretty much in the pre-K to 12 system. And there we did vulnerability assessments. And those vulnerability assessments, we created recommendations, customized recommendations based on their particular needs. That way they could enhance and optimize the safety and security of the building, the people, and also their assets, be it confidential information or just inventory.
Oh,
That was that
wow.
was that was one side. Then we also did training for, as an example, situational awareness training, where if you think about way before the pandemic, in America, there was a lot of situations with shooting events, right?
Right.
With threats of individuals with a weapon.
So Luis, like it sounds like you are helping like organizations that protect human lives and assets,
Yes,
especially with pre-K all the way to 12, like 12th grade, right?
yes, yes.
So if you're looking at a shooter, that's a crisis, right?
I think any yes,
So
that could be one of the crises. Yes,
with the COVID-19, is that not a crisis that you also would be able to help with in terms of, is that like you're helping them with a planning, or what would you do? Let's say a school. Let's say I have a school.
yep,
Let's say I'm the principal of the school,
yep.
and I go and we're sitting in the business class, drinking our coffee, like you suggested. It's just going to be a coffee conversation, and I
Okay.
say, well, I have a school, and we have this COVID-19 problem. How can you help me?
So obviously, pre-K to 12 schools right now are potentially are closed right now all throughout the states.
Mm-hmm.
So this conversation, in my opinion, will start way before that. So
I see.
I was always in the proactive side of the business instead of the reactive side of the business. Now, with that being said, although I was not always on the reactive side, it's still necessary to think about throughout the supply chain of a
Right.
crisis. The proactive measures, the mitigation efforts, and also the response efforts. Also, on how are you going to continue the business? So the business continuity ties it all back to the proactive side.
I see.
So that that's, you have to look at that question in a comprehensive format. You can't just say, "Hey, I have a threat right in front of me now." By that time, it may be too late. And I
So
think
you're kind
that's
of like a fire marshal. You're not like a firefighter. So you go there and you help them prepare a plan so that they don't have to be in a fire.
preparing a plan, build up their confidence to be able to manage that plan,
Uh-huh.
and test out that plan to make sure that we remove all the weaknesses and redevelop and re-enhance, re-optimize, and that number eight, restart I like that, and pretty much reinvigorate the fact that, hey, let's look at all these deficiencies way before the preparedness plans, way before anything hits the fan, because by that time it
It's
may
too
be too
late.
late. It
Yeah.
may be too late. Yeah, yeah. So you
Well,
would think
that's
that
what I do. Both of us are just trying to help people like strategize and prepare, right? Plan, brief, execute, and debrief. That's what I do. So
exactly,
the planning phase is just preventing them from getting into a disaster.
exactly.
That's cool.
Uh,
The thing about COVID-19 is it's going to happen again. Not COVID-19, but it's going to be another global problem because of the way people travel, because of and so if I'm in school, I'll just say, okay, so let's say we're shut down now. Is there something you can help with? And how can you help me with making sure that this doesn't like minimize the impact, the negative impact to my students moving forward? So is that something that you help with?
Of course, and this journey that got me to develop the concept of Fidelis. And by the way, when I first launched it, it was not just me; it was me and a business partner.
Hmm.
But that business partner moved on to other bigger, better things. So now it's just me, right? So I'm not taking credit for the full development of the company. It just so happens that after he left, I rebranded the
Okay.
company, and instead of being, when I first launched, it was called Fidelis Global Group, and now it's just Fidelis North America. But coincidentally, this idea actually started way before the cohort of OSU, Ohio State University, traveled to China. At that point, I realized that we were a cohort of 39 individuals, 40 including myself, the three or four administrators. All I looked there was the capital, the human capital that was being traveling over there.
Right.
So there were CEOs, there was vice presidents, directors, doctors, and I'm thinking, okay, China, it's okay. It's a safe company, a safe country to go. But there, in my mind, at that time, I was still working for Mercedes, and everybody in the, if you think about the Masters of Business Administration, everybody's trying to be the next Bill Gates, right?
Right,
I wasn't trying to do that. I was trying to take a step back and look at the vulnerabilities of these 40 people that are traveling. So the initial idea was basically, how can a company be founded, developed to be able to mitigate the risk associated with travel?
I
And then
see.
that pretty much got us to thinking about, hey, how can we train people to basically prepare themselves to mitigate any potential risk when they travel? I love traveling. The My buddy that was a co-founder, he loved he actually worked at the State Department, so he also loved traveling himself. So we created a customized package for these for companies that had executives traveling back and forth, kind of like yourself, right? You're traveling all around the
Right,
world, and when a company sends somebody on business class or first class, they expect the individual to come back. But
right.
as you know, there's that pandemic. You said, that we
Yeah,
had MERS, we had swine flu.
yeah,
It's going to happen again, right? So
right,
what we realize is that people or companies are were not thinking too much about. They say that they are the safety and security of
right.
their
Employees, yeah,
employees is that was, in my opinion, man. And I say this, and I feel bad saying this. To me, I saw that as just a tagline, kind
right.
of like this conversation right now. I'm looking at it as a diversity and inclusion conversation, right?
Yeah.
Look at both of us, right? I love this. I love this because this is, you can't get any better than this. And I, at that point, I said safety and security is going to be as important as diversity and inclusion, meaning that you're going to have people saying, "Hey, I want to go work for Google. I want to go work for whatever."
Right.
Are you really living up to what you're saying? That diversity and inclusion is now, companies are actually making sure that the diversity and inclusion is embedded into their entire
So it's not
DNA.
just it's just not a platitude. They're not just saying it because like, oh yeah, you know what, our company believes in customer service, but you know what, when you call us with a problem, well, see you later. I'll put you on hold for an hour and a half or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
we could. I'm sure that if we had a pendulum over here, you could say, let's put all the companies that have treated Allen so well from a customer service and ones that have not. You could tell which ones they are, right? And I don't want to sit here and name out companies,
Let's
but
do that. Let's have a session and name the bad companies. No, no, I'm gonna never do that. Let's
no,
name the good companies. Yeah,
I did mention before that I'm a Apple product user, and I love
yeah.
Apple for reasons. Everybody has different reasons, but for me, I think customer service is one of the biggest factors, motivating factors that will either make a company survive or drown, and that's kind of where Fidelis really started.
Hmm.
Um, but at that point where we were trying to customize packages for executives, that's when the active shooter situations started to escalate.
Right.
And so what we saw was a need to create a customized package, a customized service training for different companies. And we started offering free classes, really free seminars on let's take a step back. Let's have a proactive way of looking at this problem and not just run, hide, fight. Right? It
So
was
if
just
I'm at school, you'll be willing to come in and do like a free work seminar, and then talk about how you can help me with a planning a crisis, like a crisis management plan or something like that.
exactly. And that's kind of where we started looking at, all right, we know we try to do the global thing, but maybe if we just reshape the company to be what it is now, that's exactly what we saw. We saw the sweet spot being a comprehensive plan. And if you go to the website, you'll be able to see Iberia Parish schools, and also Evangeline Parish schools. So those two contracts that we actually landed in Louisiana.
Hmm.
By the way, hi to everybody in Louisiana. It's have you been to Louisiana before?
No, I haven't.
You listen, Alan. You love
It's
food.
another place that you and I need to go. There's going to be food. I know about. I know it. I know it.
You love food.
Yep.
You love culture.
Yep.
You love people.
Yep.
Do you like to dance?
I like to dance. People don't like to watch me dance. I don't really care.
That's
So
all right.
yeah.
Those three things are the biggest part. The reason why I'm bringing up dancing is because there's a genre called zydeco. And I'm hoping that whoever's listening to this is listening to Great Zydeco. And I learned how to dance Zydeco down there last year as part of the Mardi Gras experience. So, anyways, the point is that if you go to Louisiana, you are gonna love it. So that's where these two clients that I have or had
Cool.
are down there, and we created customized packages, not just for a blindsided approach, meaning we know that there's a threat out there, meaning the active shooter threat.
Right.
But more, let's take a step back and take a comprehensive approach and look at all the hazards available and
Hmm.
creating a plan for every single hazard that would pretty much be interwoven to every single one, meaning that fire fire drills are typically always done right, but beyond that there's also bomb, and there's we could go down the
Yeah,
line.
there's always stalkers, right? In the colleges, you have like, how do you keep the female population safe from like maybe a predatory stalker or yeah. So I can
So
see that. Yeah.
I'll give you an example. One of the before the pandemic actually blew up, one of the most recent projects I had was essentially a tabletop conversation with a tabletop conversation with Iberia Parish Schools District, and in there we had the district administration and also every single school. So they have 38 different schools. So we basically had 4 or 5 different sessions, and everybody went through the same session, meaning the schools went through the same tabletops. And I created a customized problem for them, and they had to problem solve right then and there. As far as, okay, there's a social media threat, and that you do not, and that social media threat led to 3 different modules. By the time you got to module 4, they were mentally exhausted by actually engaging with every single new phase of the workshop process. At the same time that the boots on the ground, right, the principals and the teachers were going through this exercise, I had also the executive leadership going through their operation management, meaning that now you have an issue. You're sitting drinking coffee, as an example, at the district. You're having a situation at a high school. How are you going to manage that situation while you have all the other schools that are still operating, and now you have deaths, and you have people grieving? So it's a big production.
Hmm.
But that's kind of it's the business was not just a one-sided focus. It was more comprehensive. That way everybody walks away with value, right, with
Right.
valuable service. So hopefully that
That's
makes
awesome. That is I think what you do is very necessary in today's world. I mean, I can see why you guys started global, and I can see why you're actually concentrating back on North America because there's a lot of need right now, like even with like how do you deal with crisis and looking at it from a holistic point of view. Anyway, Luis, if this is there any other questions? I don't think I answered your last question.
which
If I
one.
were to write a letter to what was it for the pandemics? Is that
Yeah,
what?
if you were to put that letter into today's environment with the pandemic, what would that look like?
I think I'll approach it from like for like maybe a few aspects. One is like number one, how can we be safe financially, physically, psychologically, right? So you have to immediately think about like survival.
Hmm.
Survival. What do I need for my family to survive? So you have to look at your finances. You have to just break down everything that you need in order to go from month to month, how long you can go, food, things like that, and how can you stay fit psychologically, mentally, physically, and what kind of exercise that you can do maybe in your house or in an area that is not with other people. Um, you know, but then how do you stay? How do you focus on survival without being selfish and acting out of fear? So literally, these are plans. You prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. And what are the things that you can do? How can you take care of your family without hurting other people? Right. So the two words that'll come in is my mind is how to be generous and not selfish.
Hmm.
Right. So there's going to be people around you that are older people that need you to stay in touch with them. They may be your neighbors. Can you run errands for them? Can you do things for them? If they need something, are you there at their disposal? At the disposal, maybe their family is living too far away. So in our neighborhood, there's a lot of older people live near where I live in the boonies, right, in a national forest. So
Yeah.
I don't know why old people are attracted to national forests where they have a lot of space and they don't see other people. They need their kids around, but
Peace and
so
tranquility.
yeah, the tranquility. But it's so we created a almost like an email, like a network. So who are willing to help and who needs help, and then you start matching it. So someone who needs help would just say, "I need help," and then people would just kind of look at the
Hmm.
needs and then
Hmm.
fulfill those needs.
Hmm.
Another thing is it's so important not to be selfish right now. For instance, we don't even think about it, but when something like this happens, you're gonna think, "I don't want to go eat at a restaurant," right? But in fact, that is when you should patronize your restaurants, your favorite restaurants, the ones that you want to be around when this whole thing blows over. So I told my wife to call these restaurants and guess what? Buy gift cards.
Okay.
Even if I don't want to eat there right now, I'll buy a gift card because this thing will blow over and I want them to have some cash so that they can stay in business and be around. So if we encourage everyone we know around. If everybody just buy a few gift cards from the restaurants that we want to patronize and stay in business, we're almost voting with our money who we want to stay around after. This is fantastic. The horrible restaurants that have like maybe they have horrible service like before, they had horrible quality. This is their time for them to just be like purged, right? But the
This is
good
the
restaurants, the ones that you want to stay around, go get gift cards. Tell your friends to get gift cards. Get delivery. Go get pickup. They'll be around to serve you when you go back.
so
It
this
is
is the
so key.
so this is the ASP, the Allen stimulus package for
That's right.
restaurants.
That's right. A lot of this stimulus package will not go to restaurants, and they're gonna close
Mm,
the mom and pop restaurants. You think about Dominican Republic restaurants, you have Chinese restaurant, the Korean restaurants, the Vietnamese. They don't have stimulus package. They're not banks. They're not schools. They're not universities. They don't have stimulus package coming to them. They'll have loans. But come on, we know it. They already have a line of credit already before this case. They have already have debts. They
yeah,
already have. Now you're
yeah.
going to ask them to go into more debt? No,
No,
let's help them
no,
out.
yeah. So real quick, so if you have obviously when this all blows up, let's put 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 18 months from now, wherever, however long it's going to take, people are going to have to go back to work.
Yes,
And people start getting afraid when they think about, okay, now I have to go into an interview, which is a negotiation,
right.
right? What kind of ideas do you have for people that may have to submerge themselves back into the interview process, and they're either introverts or they are extroverts, but at the end of the day, they have that fear inside, like, my hands are shaking. What kind of, because you spoke about the process, tactics, and strategy.
We almost need a whole podcast just to talk about that, but I can give you a few ideas.
Okay.
The first thing that you're going to get is what you just mentioned, the anxiety of interview, whether pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, no pandemic, in the midst of pandemic, you're going to be anxious. You go interview for a job that you need. You're going to be anxious. So what are some of the things that you can do to manage your fear and emotions?
Hmm.
Breathing.
Hmm.
Breathing. So there's a Taoist breathing. It's a 6-count breath. So you breathe in slowly, 6 count, or you breathe out and then you breathe out slowly, 6 count. So in, it takes you 6 count to get in, and out, you are managing your breath. When you slow down your breath, you actually take your body back into a relaxed state. Your muscles do not tense up. Your adrenaline glands do not start pumping. So you don't have the adrenaline all over your body. You're not going to a fight or flight. You stop sweating as much. Your breath slows down. Your heart rate slows down. Your blood pressure lowers. So at that point, you can actually think more clearly. When you go into a fight or flight, people go into a meeting and they say, I said something I should never have said, because they're in fear, so they say things they have no control over. But when you're calm and when you're relaxed, when you're having a cup of coffee with a friend across in Columbus, Ohio, you can say a lot of stuff and it's all under control. You're not anxious. right?
Hmm.
So slowing down your breathing. And there's a box breathing that the special forces use. You're probably familiar with the box breathing, right?
It's in my book. I think you read my book, but that's okay.
I steal it from anywhere I can steal it. Okay.
I know, I
So
know. I'm
finally,
joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
yeah, the third breathing is we do it, but we don't know we do it. So now we're going to an in like with intent. Are you familiar with when someone holds a deep breath and then puff up their cheeks like this?
No, I'm not familiar with that. What is that? What is
So
that
what
for?
happens? You build up like all of a sudden you're almost like building up carbon dioxide. You're just slowing. You're slowing things down. So when you're
Okay,
stressed, you just go like this. But you can't do it when you're at like a negotiation table
for
because now
sure.
you kind of look funny, right? You go like this. You go
By the way, if you're listening to this, Alan looks like a fish right now doing that,
like a
right?
puffer fish.
Like a
You
puffer
puff.
fish.
You puff up your cheeks. Your lungs. You just like empty up your lungs. It's almost like a bagpipe. Like a bagpipe, boom, you just your lungs empty the air back into your cheeks puff up, and then your cheeks act as a second lung and slowly exhale.
Yeah.
What that does is, again, it slows down your breathing. It's very powerful. And you know why we can do it? We can do it when we're negotiating online with someone. You can just turn off your camera, you can still negotiate, and what the other person's saying is so threatening, you just go,
Hmm.
and now you can ask the next question. What made you say such a thing?
So thinking coherently by actually controlling your breathing to lower the anxiety, lower pretty much everything else
Yes,
that's going on.
you are short circuiting your fight or flight reaction to prevent it from happening.
All right. So I think you invited yourself to the next podcast because you said that we have to have a next podcast to discuss it more in detail. But my friend, it was a pleasure to have you on board.
Same here. It's
Uh,
a lot of fun. Yeah.
we got to do this again though. But if you're just listening to this podcast, it's called The Conversation with Luis Ramirez. My guest today is Allan Tsang, and we're about to sign off. But please subscribe. If you made it all the way to this episode, you can find us on YouTube under The Conversation with Luis, or Apple Podcasts, or SoundCloud with the same name. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you being on board, my friend.
Thank you.
That's what we said. Thank you.
Take care.